the whole Apex GP stuff. Seeing the film crew around. First of all, but I just want to get your thoughts in terms of this movie, what we've seen so far. We've seen pictures of the cars. We've seen that they've got a garage plumb in the middle of the pit lane as well, which I was quite surprised about. You got Brad Pitt knocking about in F1 cars. You had him driving around just after each session. What are we thinking? Are we confident this is going to be a good interpretation of Formula One?
Zero confidence in that, but
It was nice, yeah.
You didn't even take a breath.
Don't need to.
No.
Not even with Lewis as producer. How dare you?
But 100% confidence that it's a good thing for F1. Like, I've been crying out for this stuff for like 20 years. You know, all I've had is
Rush.
qualifying race.
Rush is a good film, though.
And then,
Brilliant.
but now
And
we've
this is
got
like modern coverage of F1.
Yeah, but now we've got interest. That means that the parties outside of Formula One are interested. Rush was a great movie. You know, even the Le Mans '66 movie was great. Okay, it wasn't about Formula One.
What a film.
Right? It wasn't about Formula One, but it means that motor racing is back in the spotlight, and that can only be a good thing.
But I think this helps as well because all of the current drivers, I saw some pictures of the timing. They've created their own kind of made up timings and like telemetry and all that. And you have all the current drivers. So, you know, whether it's Joe or Leclerc or Albon, they'll be in the movie, not acting, but they'll be in the movie. And I think having that closer tie to the real sport,
Noda.
it's almost,
in that film.
He's in the film. These will be in this film forever as well, by the way. It kind of like captures you in time.
Sorry.
And I just think that it's a closer tie to Drive to Survive. And we're talking about this on the stream cam about the sport and how this is a tough sell this season. I've noticed it on my channel in terms of like my viewership has dropped. I know like compared to some of the streams we were doing like end of last year, even like, you know, the view. There's been a degree of drop off, and I think stuff like this is important in re-engaging those kind of
it's
fans.
a different way to try and get fans in when you don't have the product on track, and with the best will in the world, you can't have the best.
Wait, I've got the title for this clip. Can Brad Pitt save Formula One?
Oh my God.
Lock it in, Lewis. That's it. We're done.
Oh dear. Go on, Shiz.
You have to find different ways to do it. DTS was a really good way to get fans interested and then tee them up for that 2021 season. And having movies, having documentaries, and different narratives within that when you have a dominant season like you do right now, that's what you've got to do. You've got to do this. You've got to find other ways to bring people in and maintain the interest that you had before.
And you know, Welcome to Enstone's coming.
Oh, mate. Take that. Listen, anything, all of this stuff is all good, right? Anything that's like, and I would have turned up my nose at this Drive to Survive stuff. That's not for me.
Or Surviving to Drive, the book.
Yeah, just give me the racing. I'm not interested in all this nonsense stuff, but it is important, chaps. It really is important. Like you say, Tommo, the space is, it is massively shrinking, right? And we were blessed in 2021 with a bloody blood and guts season on the back of a COVID hiatus, and with Drive to Survive just coming out and just doing crazy numbers, right? So you had these three things that were almost like an act of God breathing new life into a sport that was not dying, but not doing as well as it could have been. So I think I agree with what you're saying, Shez, that this F1 film is good, but I wouldn't expect to see the massive uptick in viewership and attendance figures on the back of that we did on the back of
it won't, but
Drive to Survive.
I think it'll also just like reach out to a slightly different audience again. You know, you've got someone like Brad Pitt that's going to be in it. That's just like the American casual film watcher audience.
Yeah.
This
like
probably
would never ever think about watching Formula One, but fucking Brad Pitt film. Like,
Tom,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Tommo, let me ask you a question, because you're the Maven in all this.
What's a Maven?
Specialist, an expert.
Just your dictionary is too big for me sometimes. I can't keep up.
I don't know what I'm talking about. How would you? What do you think F1? What are the low-hanging fruit that F1 could do to not only bring in new eyes, but to keep the ones that they've just brought in on the back of Drive to Survive at a time when Max is so bloody dominant every single race?
Yeah, I mean, I think something like we've talked about, you know, selling a story throughout, and I think to go back to the whole Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney thing, right? They took a football team, small football team in the North of Wales, Wrexham, and created. They weren't by far. They're a team in the bloody conference, that National League, and they took that institution, and they created so much. What's the other football series that's been going on for ages?
Ted Lasso,
yeah. And that's taken the story of a small team and working it up. I think there's, again, we talked about this in the stream, like, when you don't have a fight at the very front, it's always a difficult sell. A race will only be so good if you don't have that proper scrap at the front, because it will always mean more when there's a fight for a lead, right? Great battle. If it's P14, like, we're going to love it, but like, it's not going to stay long in the memory like a move for P1.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't know, when Leclerc and Verstappen scrapping in Bahrain's first race of the season last year, right? That stays long in the memory because it was a fight for the lead. So I think telling those stories, there's a proof of concept again in other sports that to get people invested in these other teams and these other characters, and we saw it again, Drive to Survive. Gunther Steiner's got a huge fan base because of Drive to Survive. He's a Haas team principal. They're not fighting at the front. But I think telling those stories engages and turns where I can really enjoy a battle for P8.
True.
Like,
because you're invested.
And yeah, of course, it's always going to be, you know, when Lando overtook Max for the lead, that means more because it's for the lead. Of course, that's always going to be the way. But I think because you have to, I think, build an infrastructure into the sport where it's not reliant on every season, every race being an absolute banger for there to be any interest, because we got that in 21. But that's not going to happen. That's unrealistic to expect.
And I think one thing that they don't do at the moment is the technical aspect of it, and I think the mistake that F1 often makes is that they think that the technical aspect of it is going to go over everyone's head. But until you realise that it's actually just about people, it is about Adrian Newey versus Dan Fallows versus James Allison. If you can bring that story in,
tell those stories.
Yeah, there's still an underdog story there of like Dan Fallows going to Aston Martin and then, you know, challenging the big boys.
Yeah.
But F1 doesn't tell stories, or it hasn't done for ages
yet.
Like it just doesn't. I don't know whether it's the bloody British bias thing and stiff upper lip, and we don't want to brag about this fantastic sport that we all hold so near and dear to our hearts. But F1, and you got, as a football Donny and a West Ham fan, you like when you watch Amazon. Yes, when you watch bloody All or Nothing is a good example.
Yeah.
On Amazon Prime, where is that for F1?
Yeah, agreed.
There's nothing like the level and the quality. I mean, like Son screaming at lorries, that goes viral instantly. There's nothing in the F1 space that could even talk to that. I think it doesn't exist.
I was genuinely going to bring that up. I feel like again, it links back to the absence of people in terms of, like, obviously, yes, cool, there's drivers that are humans, bless, but the making of the car, everything about a team is the people that are involved in it. And I think it would bring so many different, like, almost it would bring bigger stars to the show, almost, if you actually tried to tell the stories of the people too.
Pit crews. The highs and lows of being in the pit box. Like, literally for Q3, I was in Red Bulls. I was super I got to go in the little viewing gallery, right? And I'm there when Max is going out and he's putting back in, right? And you see when that story's not told, you kind of take it for granted that they're going to get the car out. Literally, like 30 minutes before the session, like, it's all got, all the body panels are off, and like there's all one little screw that's not like tightened properly. Every single wheel, right? They do every single one. It's the exact same cadence of like because it's so like military precision. And when things go wrong, like I was in there, Lando went P1, and I was like, and then like it was silent, and then Max went P1, and they were like, yeah.
We need to see that.
Show us those stories because they exist. They're there. You don't even have to. You don't have to play up for the cameras. Just tell the story.
Yeah.